Hello, and welcome to America's Veterans. My name is Len Sorotsky, and I will be your host. Our broadcast today is coming to you from the University of South Florida Culinary Innovation Lab in Lakewood Ranch. Our focus will be on dreamers. To set our tone, I want you to read a short poem with me. I cannot tell you who wrote the poem because I don't know. The poem came to me as a part of an email. Here we go. A child is like a butterfly in the wind. Some can fly higher than others, but each one flies the best it can. Why compare one against the other? Each one is different, each one is special, each one is beautiful. If you believe this little poem should be applied to our children, please raise your hand. I can see almost every hand in the audience raised. Our current concept about learning is just about the opposite. Make all kids the same. And the only important issue is whether or not a child can pass a test that was created in some faraway place. All children must prepare to go to college. Wrong. College is not for everyone. Every year, thousands of young Americans enlist in some part of our military. Many joined and stay until retirement. Many complete a single enlistment and then come home. In either case, they all become America's veterans. A major question is, what do I do now? Socrates said, "Know thyself." The answer to the question, who am I, sets a person free and leads to success. Allow me to introduce another dreamer, Chris Nodorf, who will lead us to today's featured dreamer. Chris will be a guest on our program in the very near future, and he holds the position of community outreach and engagement. Chris.
Thank you, Lynn. So as he said, I'm a member of the University of South Florida. I'm a student there in the MBA program, and I'm also a military veteran. I was in the United States Army for about 10 years, and since getting out, I decided to go back to school. Not that that was my only option, but I was one of those that decided to take advantage of those educational benefits. And in doing so, I wanted to do a little bit more than just go to school and take classes like the typical student. I wanted to engage the military veteran community around me. As a recruiter for the United States Army, I promised young men and women that were joining into the military that they would have great opportunities when they got out. and I wanted to make sure that I saw that through. So I co-founded a student veteran society on the campus at the University of South Florida. And in doing that, oh wow, met some of the greatest people throughout the community on the campus, and have really, and these people have really made a difference. One of which is Master Chef Bryan Jacobs, who's leading the class, the Vet to Chef program, in fact, that you may see behind me. Chef Bryan is also a military veteran. He was a Navy corpsman and did all of his work for the Marine Corps. He's committed to serving the population here in Manatee County, veterans that are looking to find their way as well. And with that being said, I'd like to introduce you to Bryan.
Hi, Bryan.
Hey, Lynn, how are you?
I'm pretty good. Yeah, you know, the first thing I want you to do is to tell the audience what is your birthday, not year, but your birthday.
My birthday, August 7th.
August 7th.
Yes, sir.
That's extremely important because it's the same day as my birthday. Yeah.
That's why, good people come together at
That's
the right
really
times.
Very, very cool. And where were you born?
I was actually born in Virginia Beach, Virginia, but I was created in Florida from what I've been told. So it was definitely a travel baby, even young.
Okay. But essentially you're a North Carolina boy.
I'm a Southern boy is what I tell people. I was raised in the South. I lived in every state from Virginia to South Carolina to Georgia, North Carolina, and Florida we'll consider.
You were
South.
thrown out all the time, every time.
I don't
you
know what
went?
happened. I just was always told to leave.
Yeah.
Military brat.
But you went to high school in North Carolina, did
I did.
you not?
I did.
And you told me that after high school, I think this is right, after high school, you enlisted.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I did my time in high school. My grandfather was, he was always pushing for me to join the military. He said he wanted me to get a jump start in life, but his vision was going to Coast Guard, going to the Air Force. That didn't happen.
Okay, but your grandpa was a big influence on you, was he not?
He was so many different things. He was a focus in my life from cooking, from growing food, from business to just generally understanding life. I mean, he was a lot of things to me.
Did you tell me one time that you even had a conversation with him after he passed?
Well, it was one of these things where I was in a rough place in my life, and this was part of when I came back home. And getting back into my reintegration, just kind of not understanding who I was. And I didn't understand PTSD, and I didn't understand what identity crisis I was in. I didn't know anything about me. And something that he would say to me often is, "You need to get your life together, son." Came out of nowhere one day as I'm sitting on a bench.
That's right.
And that day forward, that's what I've accomplished, is to get my life together.
But you did, in fact, enlist in the Navy.
I did.
First,
I
right?
tried to join the Navy. I tried to join the Air Force, but the Air Force recruiter was out to lunch for about 3 days. And so this Navy guy kept watching me walk back and forth. And day 3, he said, "Hey, let me talk to you." And I said, "No, I'm not allowed to talk to you." And I said, "My grandfather was in the Navy. My dad was in the Navy. They said, stay away from you." And he goes, "Well, I'm not that bad." He goes, "We'll get you a good job." And I'm like, no. And so that's where my enlistment began. So
Okay. And then somehow or other, you made some kind of conversion to the Marines?
yeah, it was very funny. It's a great story actually.
Okay, go ahead.
I remember I went to MEPS, and I'll never forget this senior chief. He's a big senior chief, a big black guy, bald guy, and he walks in, he puts 2 pieces of paper down, and he goes, "You qualify for 2 great jobs." Now, little I didn't know about the Navy is that it's the needs of the Navy, not the needs of you at the time. And he put me down for a nuke tech and put me down for a Navy corpsman. And I said, "Well, what's a nuke tech do?" And he goes, "Oh, don't worry about that." He goes, He didn't tell me about a $100,000 re-enlistment bonus, didn't tell me about the colleges in South Carolina, around 4 all-girls colleges. He goes, now, you'll be in the dungeon counting nuclear dubs. And I said, no, I don't want to do that. And I said, well, what's this Navy corpsman? He goes, man, hot nurses, young doctors, a guy like you, that's where you want to be at. And I said, yeah. And I said, whoa, what's this FMF thing? He goes, FMF? He goes, that's Fleet Marine Force. That's optional. I was like, option? Sign me up. Sign me up. However, that option came very fluid when I showed up to A school, minute 1, hour 1, and I ran into this gentleman by the name of Chief Noon, and I'll never forget him. He walks into this classroom and he basically states that 99% of Navy corpsmen die after the first shot is fired in battle within 30 seconds.
Well, it gives you something to look forward to.
Right, and I said, whoa, what is it? What? And he goes, 99% of the males in this class are going to go to Fleet Marine Force. Do we have anybody who wants to leave? And I'm like, the FMF thing? I'm like, I raised my hand. He goes, you want to leave? I said, well, they said it was optional. He goes, I just gave you your option. Okay. So there my journey began. So, and there was no such thing as, the Navy's going to adjust for you. But they also didn't include the fact that you would go from boot camp to A school back to another boot camp, which was Fleet Marine Force in Camp Johnson in North Carolina, just right outside Camp Lejeune. Yeah. So you had to go and earn basically your equal globe and anchor. You had to earn the ability to stand next to Marines. And I'll never forget the first gunny that I ever had, and he was good to go. He was awesome. But it was the first HM2 that I ever ran into in the fleet that I was like, man, these guys there's something wrong with these guys. But I didn't realize what it took to become a Navy corpsman. I didn't realize the mindset you had to have. You actually had to be harder than Marines. You had to be faster than Marines. You had to be more, everything. You had to be high speed. And I didn't realize that.
So you went to Great Lakes Navy?
Great Lakes Navy.
And then you had to go to a Marine boot camp?
A mini Marine boot camp. And it was back to trash cans slamming, people screaming at you. You're on the line, uniforms, back at pieces. And we're giving more uniforms. So not only do you have to maintain all your Navy uniforms, now they're giving you all these Marine Corps uniforms, and you have to wear them just as well. And so you start to lose your identity in the military. You're like, who the hell am I?
Yeah.
And you end up becoming the redheaded stepchildren of the military is what I say. Because you don't belong to the Navy, you don't belong to the Marine Corps, but they all tell you what to do. And so...
That's cool.
It was. For 6 years, I loved it.
So you got 2 different bosses?
I wish it was just 2 bosses. It was a lot of bosses.
A lot of bosses. Did you have a rank at all?
Yeah, but I just referred to as Doc. I was in the HM3 FMF. Jacobs is what I was revered. I used to be known by, and so it was just usually, hey Doc, hey Doc, hey Doc. Yeah. And you were lucky if you got called hey Doc. That means at least the Marines respected you that well, because they would call you a lot of other names too if you weren't that good.
So the original enlistment was 1999.
Yes, sir.
Is that right?
August 27, 1999. I got on a bus and said bye.
Yeah, and then your various camps, your boot camps, when was that completed so that you could get on with life?
Well, the cool thing about being a Navy corpsman is that you really never stop learning, and so you always get an opportunity to progress your knowledge. I was very fortunate, in fact, after I went to Fleet Marine Force, I was actually selected to train the new the officer candidates that came in through the military who would go through their OIC induction medical officers, and so I was training them for the field. And so I finally got a taste of what it meant for enlisted guys to show up at FMF, because we had to do the same thing for the officers. And so I got a little taste of being in charge, and so that was kind of cool. So I went and did that billet. I then reported I wanted to try out for another unit, for an elite unit, reconnaissance unit, because you can try out for recon as a Navy corpsman. You can go SEALs, you can go recon, but typically there's a waiting list. And so that's what you do. So I went and classed up in Naval Hospital Beaufort, waiting for a recon school to open up. And then 9/11 happened, and I ended up in 2nd Marine Division. And I showed up, and I was in the office, and there was myself and another corpsman. He comes up to me first. He goes, "Walk or ride?" I said, "Ride." And he goes, "All right, you're going to LAR." you're going to the grunt. So I was like, woo! But you don't really ride.
What's LAR?
LAR is light armored reconnaissance. And so a lot of in the Army, they're called them strikers. And in the Marine Corps, they call them light armored reconnaissance vehicles, LAVs. And they are light armored. When I say light armored, they bust like tin cans. We refer to a Chinook as a flying coffin. I refer to these as rolling coffins. And they float, supposedly. But you tell me a 14-ton vehicle that gets into, there's just a lot of
So where'd
physics.
you go?
Where didn't I go is the question. I was
okay.
very blessed with the fact that, being part of this unit, you travel quite a bit because you move fast. And so we did a lot of, we did a Desert Cats training, we were up in Virginia, but then we got on this airplane and ended up in the desert. And little did I know that I joined the Navy and ended up in the middle of the desert.
That's clever.
That's clever. I
Yeah,
mean, you talk
that's
about
very
getting
nice.
the ship lost. They really got lost that
Yeah.
time because there was no ocean to be seen for miles, and water was scarce. I'll say that.
What desert? What desert was that?
I don't. It was the foot of the Iraqi baseline desert and the Kuwaiti desert. So all I knew, it was a very bad place to be at the time. My occupation to be a battlefield paramedic was definitely tested. It was definitely put to use. Because that was something that you trained for, you lived for, but you never realized that you're ever going to actually do it. It's one of these things where I hear stories from gentlemen who never went to combat, which I'm very blessed they haven't. But you never know that you're going to use that training. You know it's in the back of your mind, but when it happens, it's like the world hits you in the face.
But the Marine group that you were with, the 2nd Division, did you
Yes,
say?
2nd Marine Division, yes, sir.
Did they have a mission?
Yes, sir. I was with Task Force Tarawa. Task Force Tarawa was the tip of the spear invasion to Iraq. We were in the Battle of al-Nasiriyah. We were in every major engagement from al-Nasiriyah all the way to taking Tikrit in southern Mosul during the 03 invasion. And I'll never forget those times. I mean, they're in my mind like it was yesterday. And it was one of the most amazing things in my life is I look up and I see missiles flying over, and I'm like, those aren't fireworks. And I knew then, before we even were on our way into Iraq, that this was happening.
So the missiles that you were seeing, were those American missiles? or-
Well, they were going the way we were supposed to be going, so
Okay.
I'm going to assume so.
Yeah, and none were coming back.
Not that I knew of,
Yeah.
but we were definitely in high-level protection of mop suits, and we were definitely told to duck, dig holes quick. So we were ready in case something was coming back towards us.
Well, how long were you in Iraq?
I was in Iraq for probably a total of about 20 to 22 months altogether, 2 separate tours. I did the invasion, and we ended up getting there in February to Kuwait to the staging zone, and we didn't leave until October. And then the second time I went through, about the same time frame. We left in early February and returned in November.
Okay.
And those were
And you got home with no wounds?
10 fingers and 10 toes. I'm proud to have those, and that's
Yeah. And did you care for some guys?
yes, sir. Yes,
there?
sir. That's who I was, and that's what I did.
Yes.
I mean,
that's-
I was the difference between life and death.
Yeah.
And that was probably the biggest challenge in my career, knowing that I was that person. I was that person who was going to either make sure this person got home to mom and dad and what they were left of them, or they were going home through the righteous way of a flag draped over their casket.
Okay, so you had those from 99 and then a couple of years after that?
Yes, sir. Did the invasion in 2003, and then went back in 2005 and did the retaking of the Anbar province.
So you were there on 2 separate occasions?
Yes, sir.
In there. Is that a matter of choice, or is that one of those?
It is, actually. So there was some great things. I mean, some heroic deeds that I've been cited for in my military career for going above and beyond the call of duty when we were in al-Nasiriyah. And it was recognized, and I was given a commendation. I was never given a Bronze Star or any of these other things, but I received a commendation. They felt that, they were not doing combat promotions at the time, and if I decided to go back to Iraq, there's just something that could be thought about. But then again, though, you train with your brothers, and you rehearse with your brothers, and you go to the field with your brothers, and you start to build this trust that this person on my left and right is not going to let me down. They're going to keep me alive. And to be a corpsman and to have that type of trust instilled into you by Marines is very important. You don't want to be the new corpsman coming onto a unit going fresh into combat, because they just don't have that same respect, the same trust.
Okay.
So it was something I had to do in my heart.
Yeah, of course. So eventually, though, you got out of service.
Yes, sir, I did. I decided there was a choice, and the choice was really got back down to either you go back to Iraq for a third tour, or you get out. And I had seen enough after my second tour that I really counted every second of my life, not knowing if it was going to be my last. And you know,
Right.
I didn't want to continue to live in that situation.
Yeah.
And I just knew that the only alternative for me to do is to get out. But then again, I had this really false sense of what I was going to get on the outside.
If I remember right, one of the things you were going to get on the outside was a young lady.
Yeah, well, yeah, I had a young lady waiting. Unfortunately, that relationship really didn't flourish. You know, a lot of military relationships go through struggles, and those struggles are, you know, there's a lot of time spent apart, and that is a hard thing to accept when you're a spouse. And,
So there you were.
there it was.
And kind of alone, but you did have a Honda.
Yeah, I did. I had a Honda Accord. Unfortunately, when the relationship split, she split with all my stuff as well, and that happened. And I still had my car, and so I had a mobile home, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah.
And my mobile home kept me under the Hampton Roads Bridge Parkway overpass right next to the VA downtown, and had a nice leather interior. I could put the windows up, had a moonroof, so I could watch the stars if necessary. But I was also in a part of my life too that I didn't understand, like I said, what PTSD was, or what a traumatic event would have on me as a person.
You were pretty messed up.
I was in a place I should never have been, and but I didn't realize as who I was that I had a problem.
But I think you told me that that's when Grandpa stepped in.
And that's when Grandpa came out of the blue, and it was just
Had a
life
little talk?
altering. Yeah, just life altering. Just, and I don't know if it was the alcohol, but something happened. But I heard this voice, and I don't know if it was somebody walking by, but someone said something to me, and it struck a chord. And when it did, I said, you know, I'm going to do everything I can in my heart to make amends for all the troubles I've gone through now.
Yeah.
I've got to push and be focused in my life.
Yeah. And so next, Virginia.
Next in Virginia, I just went back to what I knew, and that was food. You know, I grew up cooking. I grew up where food came from. I caught my own fish, or shuffled my own clams out of this murky mud, and caught my own crabs, and pulled my own vegetables, and foraged for mushrooms, and eaten branches of trees and stuff. You know, this thing was my life. And I had a grandfather who that's how he lived. And so we hear about this whole organic movement and farm to table, and I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
I was like, this is my life. This is what I'm used to.
So you went to Norfolk.
I went to Norfolk, went to the Culinary Institute of Virginia, and walked in and said, I want to be a chef. And they said, have you ever cooked before? And I was like, yeah, I've cooked a couple times, but never realized that all this training from 8 years old from my
I made
grandfather.
a grilled cheese sandwich.
I mean, I've made a couple cheese sandwiches. So it just happens to be my favorite dish from my grandfather is an open-faced roast beef sandwich. Very classic, grilled toast, open-faced thin sliced roast beef, onions, mushrooms, and just brown gravy. And that was just like the meal. That was it was old German, and I was a heavy kid, what can I say?
And so after culinary school, now how long did that take, by the way?
Culinary school was about 18 months long, and it was a really cool program because we actually got an associate's degree, which typically you're not getting an associate's degree, you're getting a certificate of completion or achievement from schools. I was very blessed, and this school was a kind of a hybrid of what schools were supposed to be. During this time, I worked for a really great chef, Hans Schadler, and he basically kind of like grew me culinarily. And I typically refer to him as my original grandfather of cuisine. And because he made me understand the classics. He made me understand why I should be doing things this way. And he came to me one day and said, I can no longer teach you anything. And I'm looking at him like, how is this even possible? Like, I come to work and my leave work, my
Whoa.
mind's blown every day.
Does that mean I got to get a job?
Yeah, it's like, I got to actually do something else. Like, I'm going to be fired again? No. And if anything, it's once you show forth a lot of credibility and a lot of dedication to the art, they help you progress. And this is what this chef did. He gave me a hand up, not a handout. And he sent me to Florida to work with Master Chef Peter Timmons, which was one of only 62 Master Chefs in the United States at the time, and became my culinary mentor. And just the plethora of knowledge to be a Master Chef is amazing. I hope one day to accomplish that feat. I would love to be in those shoes one day and to be able to lead change and lead and resurrect culinary in this country.
I think you had told me that before Florida, am I right that you went to Williamsburg?
I was in Williamsburg. This is where Chef Hans Schadler was out of. He was at the Williamsburg Inn. He was working there. He was the chef of the year. He was so many things there. He ended up opening his own restaurant. And when he opened his own restaurant, I joined his new restaurant.
Yeah, well, I would tell the audience that if you've not been to Williamsburg, Virginia,
you gotta go. You gotta go.
Gotta go.
You want history,
that's-
food, culture. I mean,
Yeah, it's a
and go
wonderful
now.
place.
Go now because it's the leaves are changing. That the scenes are set. I mean, you really feel like you're stepping back in time, and it's an amazing adventure.
But I think you have the triangle there. Isn't
Yeah,
it?
you do. You do. Jamestown's there.
Jamestown.
Williamsburg's there. The Yorktown's there. I mean,
Yeah.
it is a mecca of just going back in history. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's really great for people who like history.
If we really like history,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah, yeah. And then you ended up in Boca Grande.
Ended up in Boca Grande, Florida.
Yeah, and you kind of liked Florida.
I mean, Florida was, it was something I was like, well, first thing that came to mind, I'm not gonna lie to you, was girls on the beach. I'm not gonna lie.
But I know there's a lot of girls on the beach.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
a single guy, and I was like, girls
Yeah.
on the beach, there we go. And cooking. I can't get any better. And so I come down and I meet this chef, and I hit the ground running. And I just went back to these simple things that I lived by in the military, and that was having honor, courage, and commitment to everything I did. And I just focused myself culinarily and drove with my military focus. And that made all the difference in how I was received in the kitchen.
And eventually, you left Boca Grande.
Well, I left Boca Grande, well, I left the Gasparilla End, and I ended up
Gasparilla.
left Gasparilla End, and ended up going to USFSM here locally in Sarasota, Florida, where I decided that I need to get a degree. I know how to cook, but what about this other side? What about business? What about all that stuff? And I ended up really finding myself because I found other veterans. I found other veterans who were also becoming part of this school. I met Chris Nordruft, I met Todd Hughes, and I met all these guys who helped kind of also support me in my movement, support me in my vision, and I became the president of the Veterans Society.
And I don't wish to correct you, but were there not also women?
Oh, there was
in
a
there?
couple, yeah, of course,
Okay.
There's a couple
Well, I
girls
just
here and there.
wanted to make sure. We have,
I mean,
we
you
have
can't
men
be in
and
South
women.
Florida and not say women, believe me.
well, I mean, as veterans, I mean.
Yeah, well, you know, actually, to be honest with you, when I first started at the school, we had very few veterans. I think we had 22, 25 veterans. And we were actually all males at the time. And so we actually have, I don't think we've gotten it until 2013, 14, we started seeing a lot of female veterans, at least the ones that we did know about. Could there have been some there before that? Probably so. But, you know, it was pretty amazing the fact that we have just started to cohesively grow as a group of veterans who want better things. Men, women, and not only that, but even children of veterans are going to the school here, and that's making a huge impact.
Do you have any idea how many veterans you have now at USF?
We have a few hundred now.
In the
we're,
hundreds.
Yeah, we're leading the way, actually, as one of the most veteran-friendly schools, which makes me very happy to be a part of. I mean, it's one of those achievements that when you say I went to school there, that you're very proud to say I'm a bull. And I am. I'm very proud to say I'm a bull because USFSM really has supported me in my growth. The professors, the teachers, the students, the friends. I mean, the veteran organizations that we have aligned with here locally have really helped us grow. And that's what to me is major as a community to everybody come back together.
But somewhere along the trail, you must have said, I'm growing, I'm doing okay, I want to help other people.
Well, it was
How did that
It was a
happen?
culmination of a couple things. And in 2014, while I had found a light at the end of my tunnel, my younger brother, who also served in the military, was still kind of finding rough spots in his life and was still turning to alcoholism and is still turning to PTSD and was still dealing with a lot of issues. And no matter how much you want to help somebody, they have to be ready to be helped.
Sure.
And unfortunately, my younger brother kind of felt that his life was at an end, at a loss. And he took his life in May of 2014, Memorial Day weekend. And
Really depressing.
it was life-changing. And it was
Yeah.
from that sprung this vision of Vet to Chef.
Trying to help somebody.
Trying to help my veteran brothers and sisters find passion and purpose through food and brew. And to give them a possible light at the end of a tunnel.
You have a business card,
I do.
which I think it's a very impressive card.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Well, I mean that because it says in large print on that card, Vets to Success.
Yes, sir, because that's what we are.
And I really do compliment you on that because I think that that's what this whole country needs. We need to help our vets
Yes.
to some level of success, whatever it is that they want to do.
Well, it's really unique in that situation is that I often tell people this, that the military is an amazing, amazing machine where they can take a person, they can take everything about you and change it. And they give you this level of excellence you have to live to.
Yeah.
But they don't allow you to recreate the person you need to become. So when I got out the military, just like most veterans, I didn't know who Bryan was. My brother didn't know who Kevin was. You probably didn't know who Lynn was. And we get back and we're trying to figure out who we are. We have no
right.
identity. And everything we used to be, we can no longer become. We're not allowed to be that anymore. And that to me is the biggest blockade that we're facing as a reintegration focus from military to civilian world.
Do you have an idea of how many veterans there are in Minnesota and Sarasota counties?
Yeah, we have approximately about 90,000 veterans.
That's a lot of veterans.
It's a couple.
Yeah.
We got a couple.
That's a lot of veterans.
But you know what's so unique about that, though, is that it's just not Iraq veterans or Afghanistan veterans. It's Korean veterans, World War II veterans, it's Vietnam vets.
Yeah.
But what's amazing is I'm starting to see, especially programs like this, was all about reintegration, is veterans are coming out from all eras, from all time frames to help support the movement. And that is, to me, what is amazing.
All right, so the men and women who join your program, have any of these persons who were part of your program, have you seen them reach success?
Well, every one of them, from day one, the fact that they make for day one, they make a decision to be here. That is success in
Sure.
itself.
Yeah.
That is saying, I want change, I want opportunity. Help me find what you have found. Guide me, because I don't want to end up on this side. I want to be over here. And each of them have made a decision in their own lives to become that. And that, to me, takes a lot of initiative. So to me, from the first day they step in here and the first day they make the effort, that is success. But what we're doing is we're giving them the unique mindset of letting them know that they can tell themselves they're doing good things.
But I know that college, universities are very, very expensive.
They can be,
So
yeah.
what does it cost roughly
Well, our
for
program
someone
is
to go through?
Well, our program is unique because we are actually working with different organizations. One of them has to be Goodwill Veteran Services,
I'm going to get to that.
right?
yeah.
And they sponsor the program.
Yeah.
So a typical cost for the program, if a veteran wanted to come into the program outside of the Goodwill grants and go through the vetting process, it probably costs them no more than $5,000 altogether.
Yeah.
And that would be for a complete 12-week program to help them find food, help them find some passion, job placement, support, their recipe of life, the opportunities that when they meet all the different organizations, the ACF apprenticeship model, just countless and endless opportunities for success.
If you have men and women in your program, and that's a limited number of hours per week, I don't know what it is, but are you available to help them outside of that class? Do you try to do
I
that?
completely mentor the veterans, 100%. I spend time with the veterans. Not only do they meet me here, but they meet me in their kitchens and their battlegrounds. I go to their battlegrounds and spend time with them. I meet the chefs. I talk to the chefs. I watch them work. I see if they're following the due diligence that we've laid forward to them in this classroom. I'm very important to me about being a professional.
I think an awful lot of people feel that the notion of vets to success is something very positive and very good, very beneficial to America, very beneficial to individuals, a vast number. If every school in America started to do this, boy,
it would be life-changing.
That would, life-changing is a good word. So you have some organizations that have kind of jumped in to assist you either with dollars or other things. But give the audience a list of who's on your side.
Wow. Right now.
Or do you want me to do it?
I can do it as well. I mean, right now, we've been very blessed. We're working with a lot of reintegration movements too. And these reintegration focuses are from an abuse section. They're from a reintegration purpose to resume building. But it's just amazing the amount of people. And if I miss any, I'm going to apologize just because there's so many great people coming to the table. So right now, on board, we have Goodwill Veteran Services, which they sponsor the veterans to come through the program, and they're an amazing organization. The Goodwill bends over backwards to make things happen for them.
And that includes a cash grant, am I right?
Yeah, cash grant to sponsor the veterans to come through the program for uniforms. The Vets to Success receives no funding from anybody. The veterans themselves get sponsors through the Goodwill program, the HVRP grant, which is an amazing grant. They then get the opportunity to be sponsored through JFCS for housing. They then get sponsored through Harvest House or Turning Points for abuse therapy if they do need it. We have veteran service officers. We have USFSM. We have USF St. Pete. And now we have Turning Points, Salvation Army. We've just now started working with different, like Sarasota Veteran County Commission, Manatee County Veterans Commission, and local VFWs. I mean, the list is going to go on and on.
Yeah, and it includes, you had mentioned to me that there are some groups that are not Christian who are helping, and some that are really not military organizations.
We have all walks of life coming out to support this organization.
I think that's great.
Well, we have tons of restaurant partners too, and it's the Geckos, the Anna Maria Oyster Bars, the Lombo Key Club. We just now started talking with Capitol Grill, Seasons 52, and the California Pizza Kitchen has started to do some national branding for us.
So the people who complete your program, are they in any way guaranteed an opportunity at least for a job?
In day 5 of the program, in boot camp, they are we typically go through an interview process, a screening, so to speak, where we bring in the actual community to meet the veterans, the GMs, the back of house leadership, or the executive chefs, may it be. But we bring in all these opportunities to meet the veterans because we like to, it's about impact. And it's about putting your hands actually on somebody and seeing that this is a reality. We can state I can state, we have 800 homeless veterans here locally. People go, well, how do you know that? Well, the statistics state that. But the situation being is that until someone physically puts their hand on somebody and goes, wow, this guy served this country so I can do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You don't really make an impact.
It's a little disgusting.
It is. It is.
We have that many veterans who are
area.
living under bridges or maybe in their Honda Accords.
In their Honda Accords.
Yeah.
I mean.
or whatever. What questions should I have asked you and I didn't?
Oh, I mean, there's, what this program is becoming, and that's what is the uniqueness of this, is that we started as a vet to chef, and because we had all these great people and organizations starting to come to the table, we're now starting to align with other opportunities.
Sure.
We have a Vet to Brew program that's going to be starting, which is going to help train homeless displaced vets or Indian veterans in brewing and give them an opportunity in the brewing industry. We have a Vet to Baker program, which is going to train veterans in baking. We have a Vet to Agro, which can train veterans in hydroponics and aquaponics and permaculture. We have a Vet to Coffee, which we have an opportunity to work possibly with Counter-Strike Coffee, even Grunt Style. Now the big organization that we've just reached out, and hopefully we're going to get some sponsorship from them as far as the veteran uniforms and veteran t-shirts and all this great, to kind of make this its own staple entity and give other veterans a chance to lead other vets. And that's what this is becoming. And it's finding a new fire team, a new focus, but in your community and being surrounded by those who you feel most comfortable being supported by.
Have you been in contact with the Veterans Administration?
Not of yet.
Okay.
No, we haven't.
We should do that.
We should do that. I'm sure they might want to know how I've figured out all this rhyme or reason, and because the situation being is that PTSD, traumatic brain injury. The situation is that collectively as a medical practice or medical organization, we're trying to treat something that is untreatable as a massive situation. We have to figure out the individual therapies that a veteran needs in order to find their own piece of life. Programs that are artful, programs that use their minds for better things, that give them opportunity, that can create passion and purpose. That's what the VA needs to focus on. And that's what we are at Vet to Chef.
That's great. Bryan, thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's going to bring our program for today to a close. A huge thanks goes to our special guest, Bryan Jacobs. And we wish the very best to Bryan's Vets to Success idea. Brilliant idea. America needs this kind of innovation. I must take time to thank Chris
Nordorf, yeah.
For leading us down this particular trail. Thanks also to the entire staff of METV for all the work necessary to creating this program. And finally, thanks to you, each and every member of our audience, for taking time to watch today's episode of America's Veterans. Beyond that, there is no ending, closing, or conclusion to today's story. It's only the beginning. I've been a history student nearly all of my life. It's sad for me to see that history and geography have taken back seats to today's educational programs. Many Americans do not know that our nation was created by adding pieces, sometimes in war, sometimes in purchases. But America is really made up of pieces of land that originally belonged to England, Spain, France, Mexico, and Russia. Explorers and settlers and immigrants came to this nation because it was the only place on earth where you could be truly free. Liberty, freedom, equality, and self-government were dreams. Kings and dictators were the rule. Cruelty and biases were the norm. If there never were veterans, there would be no America. So many young Americans stepped forward to protect our nation. So many died for their efforts. We must honor and respect our veterans for all time. America owes a successful life to every single veteran who's willing to do his or her share of learning. We'll always need skilled craftsmen, and for those men and women, colleges may not be necessary. Learning is endless. So is history. Consider starting today. Thank you. God bless you.